Intermediate Algebra Mid-Course Assessment, questions 20, 21, and 22. In question number 20, we have a 4x to the second minus a 4x equals 8. What we're going to do with this one is solve, just like we did with number 19. So before we begin, we need to first start moving that 8 over so that it equals 0 so that we create the trinomial. So I'm going to subtract the 8 from both sides, so I end up with a 4x squared minus a 4x minus an 8 equals 0. I'm going to continue forward now. I want to factor this problem. Before I do, I look for the greatest common factor. I've got a 4, and an 8. Well, 4 will go into all of these, so I'm going to divide out the 4 so that I end up with the 4 on the outside. I'm left with inside a 4 into a 4 leaves me with x squared minus an x minus a 2 when the 4 divides in. Now that I have this trinomial, now I want to look for factors that are going to get my C position or last position, but are also going to equal to the B position when summed together. So 1 times a 2 will get me a 2. I need it to be a negative, so I'm going to need to put a negative either on the 1 or the 2. I put it on the 2 because when I sum, I want the other answer to be negative as well. So I want it on the larger of the two factors so that I keep that negative sign. So I have a 1 times a negative 2 creates a negative 2. A 1 plus a negative 2 makes a negative 1. There are my factors. So again, I'm going to copy down my 4. I'm going to set my problem up with my 2 sets of parentheses. I'm going to take that x squared from the first position, put that x in to the first position on the inside of those binomials, and then I'm going to add on to those the factors that I found from above. So I have a plus 1 and a minus 2. Now I need to take each of these and set them equal to 0. So 4 is not equal to 0, so that one canceled out. On the next one I have an x plus 1 equals 0. So I subtract the 1 from both sides and I find that x is equal to a negative 1. There's one answer. Then I'm going to take the x minus 2 equals 0. I'm going to add the 2 to both sides, so I end up with x is equal to 2. So there's a second answer. So I have a negative 1 comma 2. Again, do not put these in parentheses. These are not ordered pairs. Alright, so moving on down from there, number 21. It has a set of instructions that say a rectangular garden is 3 times as long as it is wide. If the area of the garden is 432 feet squared, find the length and the width of the garden. Alright, well, let's start by making a picture. So I'm going to come down here and give myself some space. I made a picture here. So I made a rectangle, and then I plugged in the information that I had from the sentence. It said a rectangular garden is 3 times as long as it is wide. So my length over here is equal to 3 times the width. And then my width, I just plugged it in with a W. I also know from reading through that my area is equal to 432 feet squared. Well, the area of a rectangle, the formula is A equals L times W, so length times width. So I'm going to plug the information in that I have. So I have my area is equal to a length, which I now know is a 3W, so I plug a 3W in here, times the W. Also, I can come back here and put my area in, which I know to be 432. And just kind of skipping down, I took that 3W times that W. Okay. So a 3 times a 1 is going to be a 3. A W times a W makes a W squared. Next, I'm going to move the constant out, so I divide the 3 out to both sides. So I ended up with 144 equals a W squared. So if I look at that, and I take the square root of both sides, it actually clears out my square root on my W to make it a single W, and the square root of 144 is 12. So my width is 12. Now I need to go back and find my length. Well, if I look up here, I still have it on the page. My length is equal to 3 times the width. So 3 times 12 is going to get me my length. So my length is 36 feet. Let's look at question number 22. If an object is propelled upward from the ground level with an initial velocity of 45.3 feet per second, its height, h, in feet, and t seconds later is given by the equation h equals a negative 16t squared plus a 45.3 t. After how many seconds does the object hit the ground? Round to the nearest tenth of a second if necessary. Alright, so let's put this information on here. So we were given this equation. We were told that h is equal to a negative 16t squared plus 45.3t. Let's start by factoring. I'm going to pull out the greatest common factor. I look at the 16 and the 45.3. I can't pull anything there, but I have t's available. So I'm going to divide out a t. And because there is a negative in the first position, I'm going to pull out a negative with that t. So it's a negative t. I divide out the t's, and I'm left with a negative t times a 16t minus 45.3. I factored it. Now I can set each of these equal to 0. A negative t equal to 0. On the other side, I have the 16t minus 45.3 equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract the sum the 45.3 to both sides. Then I'm going to come in, I'm going to divide both sides by 16. I'm going to end up with a number that's going to go out for a ways. It's t equals 2.83125, and it actually continues on out. But my instructions said to round it to the nearest tenths place. So that 8 is in the tenths place. I look at its neighbor, it's a 3. So rather than rounding it up to a 9, it's going to stay as an 8. So it's a 2.8. So when I look back at this, my time is 2.8 seconds.